what are the energy expenditure and what are the factors that can affect the energy expenditure. Okay, so under energy expenditure, we are going to spend a little bit time on basal metabolic rate, because this is the major component of your energy expenditure. Okay, then we're going to go through the protein, the macronutrients, okay, in which we are going to talk about protein, energy, malnutrition. So when there is decrease in energy, when they have low in energy in your negative balance of energy in your diet, okay, and we are going to talk about increase in positive energy balance, which is obesity. So with that, we are going to also talk about appetite regulation. Okay, so actually the last LO actually is together with the fifth LO. I will actually merge it together. Okay, relate the mechanism of appetite, hunger, and control. So it is together with the discussion of obesity. Yeah. All right. So a few terms. So this is an interactive lecture. So I'm hoping that there's some interactions. Okay. It is very, very difficult to get interactions to be going on, especially when it is online, because I cannot see you. Okay, but I still hope that there'll be some interaction. Okay, all right, so the terms nutrients, okay, which refer to substance which is digested and absorbed and used to promote body function. Okay, so the keywords here is digested and absorbed, but you might find that some of the nutrients that we are going to talk about when we talk about fiber, especially this part of it is not being digested, is not well digested. Yeah, and absorbed. Okay, because parts of the nutrients which is not absorbed is actually quite useless, isn't it? Because it needs to be absorbed in order for it to be metabolized and used up by the body. Okay, and most importantly, the keywords for nutrients is it used to promote body function. Okay, so it used to promote body function. Okay, so whichever part of the food that you eat which does not promote body function, which is harmful to your body, it is not considered as a nutrient. Okay, all right, so that is basically what nutrients means when you because sometimes when we talk about nutrients, you will call it, in a layman we will call it food. Okay, so it really is the content of food. Okay, so the content of food which is really used up in a body and it's metabolized and it used to promote body function. Okay, so what does it mean by promote body function? Anyone?
Movements.
Movements. What else? Anyone? The body functions. What are the body functions generally? Movements, yeah, for you to move.
Thinking.
Thinking, okay.
Helps in metabolic activities.
Okay, so the metabolism in a body. Okay, so the nutrients that promote the metabolism in the body. Okay, what else? Okay, so when you talk about body function, it's very general, it's very wide. So of course, when you talk about movement, you want to talk about the generation of energy and all that. So of course, it needs metabolism. So as you have learned in the metabolism, there are enzymes. So all this needs nutrients, and it needs another one that, if you see the example of nutrients are your protein, fat, carbohydrate, minerals, vitamins, and water. Do not forget about water. Although we are not going to talk so much about water, but the basis of all metabolism is you need water. Okay, so water, it is considered as part of nutrients, although it doesn't give energy, but it is the matrix base, the platform for nutrients to work. Okay, so there is a role of water as part of a nutrients. Okay, so you have to have enough water. Okay, so body function, energy for you to move, for all the organs to work in the body, your heartbeat, your respiration, your growth, your development. So that's all comes under the body function. Yeah, so you need nutrients for all that. Essential nutrient, you learn about this. I'm not going to go through this. So you will find that some of the nutrients are essential, in which the body cannot synthesize it and you have to take it in a diet. Okay, so we're going to talk about balanced diet. Okay, so what are the combination of diet which is adequate, okay, is sufficient to promote the health, okay, and malnutrition. Okay, so malnutrition refers to when the diet content is in incorrect amount in one or more nutrients. Okay, so you might feel that you have enough food, maybe enough intake, but you might be deficient in certain components of a nutrient. Okay, so vitamins, for example. Okay, so these are all fall under malnutrition. Okay, so although we will talk later about protein energy malnutrition, in which we are focusing more about deficiency in energy component of the nutrition, which is your macronutrients. Okay, but later when we go into your micronutrients, you will also talk about vitamins deficiency and mineral deficiency. So that also falls under deficiency or malnutrition. Yeah, okay. So generally, the elements of nutrients, okay, are your macro and micronutrients. We've talked about this. Okay, what does that mean by macronutrient? Why we call it macronutrient? Anyone?
Nutrients that are needed in large amounts.
Okay, yes, it's a macronutrient because it is needed in large amount. Okay, so what about micronutrient?
They are needed by the body, but only in small amounts.
Okay. Okay, so macro and micronutrient is about the amount that is needed in a body. Okay, so for example, your trace elements and your mineral and your trace elements, you only need a small amount. Okay, and your vitamins, you only need a small amount. But that doesn't mean that it is not important. Okay, that doesn't mean because it's only needed a small amount, it's okay not to even have it. Okay, so even it is a micronutrient needed only in a small amount, but you have to have sufficient amount of that components of nutrient. All right. So generally, your macronutrients is needed in relatively large amount, about grams in unit daily. Your micronutrient is required in a small amount, about milligram or micrograms daily. So when you see any tables of recommended intake, you will notice the units are different. Okay. All right. So a little bit of overview of the different elements on these components of nutrients. So basically, most of these nutrients are organic. Okay, what does it mean by organic?
Organic as in they contain carbon.
Okay, all right, so organic means it contains carbon. Okay, so most of our nutrients are organic. Your carbs, your lipids, your proteins these are organic nutrients. Okay, as well as your vitamins, they are organic nutrients. It contains carbon. So being organic, it is more bioavailable and usable. Basically, it is more usable in the living organism because it has the ability to attach to each other. So it is more conducive. Okay, so as opposed to inorganic nutrients, okay, which is your minerals. Okay, mineral is not so bioavailable. Okay, but still it is your nutrients. You need your minerals at certain amounts, and there is, although we have a separate component, minerals, carbohydrates, protein, vitamins, we still have some mixture of your proteins, which also contains your mineral, for example, your phytoferritin, lactoferrin. So these substances are also exist, you know. And there's also, for example, macro minerals, okay, which is a mixture of your macro and macronutrients and your mineral, okay. And there is also vitamins that contains nitrogen, which is part of your proteins. For example, your vitamin B, okay, it contains nitrogen. Okay, so there is always a mixture of everything, okay, in terms of its biochemical structure. All right. All right, so we, okay, so we mentioned a bit about this earlier, the functions of nutrients. We talk about mainly energy in a macronutrient, okay, growth, development, and for regulation of processes, which is your metabolism. So you mentioned about this just now. Okay, so when you talk about movement and all that, you're talking about energy. Energy also needs by the cells to process, okay, and growth. So, and regulation of other processes such as your enzymes and all that. Okay, so metabolism is the total of all chemical processes that occur in the living cell. Okay, so when you talk about nutrients, you will find the term about nutrient dense food. Okay, nutrient dense food means food with high in nutrient but relatively low calorie, okay, in which there is low energy, okay, as opposed to energy dense food. Okay, so these are different classification of nutrient that you will find when you read about nutrition. Okay, when you talk about nutrient dense foods, it refers to food with high in nutrient but relatively low calorie. So these are, for example, your veggies, your fruits. Okay, it is very nutritious, but it is relatively low calorie. So there's nutrient dense food as opposed to energy dense food. For example, your fat, your fatty food. So these are energy dense food. All right. Okay, so this table just to show the functions of nutrients. I'm not going to go through this because you can read about this and we will go. You have learned in a quite detail for carbohydrate, protein, and fat. Okay, so there's water. There is a fluid medium for metabolic processes and excretion of waste product. Okay, so it's more of a regulatory function. Okay, not so much of energy, water. And we will talk about vitamins and minerals in a separate lecture. Okay. Okay. And how much nutrients do you need in a body? Okay, so that is when you talk about nutrients, you want to think about how much is enough. Okay, so there are many ways to express the sufficiency of certain nutrients. Okay, there are many ways, there are many terms that is used to express the how much nutrient that is needed in your body. So different terms perhaps has a different definition to it. Okay, so for example, so the most common one that is used are recommended nutrient intake, which is the or RNI. So the recommended nutrient intakes refer to the daily intake of certain nutrients which meets the nutrient requirement of 97% of apparently healthy individual in an age and sex specific population. So that means when they want to identify what are the recommended intake, what are the amount of intake can be recommended for certain nutrient, they have to study the population, the healthy population. Okay, so they did a survey, and so they have to study that population. So they come up with certain range of recommended intake. So that range refers to the requirement of 97% of the healthy individual in that population. So that means you will still have 3% of also a healthy individual, but might need more or less of nutrient from that recommended range. Okay, so the RNI just refer to the recommended nutrient intake for the 97% of the healthy individual of that population. So you will have different RNI for different gender. Okay, for example, the RNI for perhaps RNI for carbs is different in male versus female. Okay, and at different age you will need more of certain nutrients than others. Okay, so if you were to study nutrient, if you are a nutritionist, okay, so you will find that there are different RNI that is recommended for different age or different sex, different gender. Okay, and perhaps in the different health condition. Okay, so RNI is basically for the health, is the recommended intake for healthy individual. So in a different condition, you might have a different recommended intake for a certain nutrient. So that is just an overview. Okay, so there's a variety, and I informed earlier there is a variety of terms that is used as a reference to dietary recommendation. Okay, so some terms you will find RDA, recommended dietary allowance, There's also recommended daily allowance. There are also recommended daily amount. So these terms are used interchangeably. There is also terms estimated average requirements and many more. Okay, so you'll find RNI, RDI. Okay, they might have a slightly different definition. So at your level, you don't have to know very detailed about all these different different terms that is used, but at least enough for you to know the terms R and I. Okay, why do you think it is important to know the recommended nutrient intake? Okay, anyone? Why is it important to know the recommended nutrient intake?
So that we don't face malnutrition or over intake of food.
Okay, so for a clinical practitioner like you all, a doctor, as a doctor, you will need to know the RNI for more of for patient management, yeah, so that you will know this the right amount of the nutrients that is needed so that the patient is not malnourished. Okay, so you will need to know what is the RNI for specific for the specific nutrient. Okay, but RNI is also used widely in the population because it is a populational study. Okay, so it is studied in a specific population. So you might have a different RNI in Malaysian population versus in UK population, for example, because it is a study done in a certain population. Okay, so it is also used by the policymaker of a certain population to monitor the food supply of the country. Okay, so usually every country, they will have the national dietary guideline. Okay, so the RNI is used for that, and it is used for interventional planner for certain dietary program. It is also used for the food industry, for marketing and all that. Okay, so they also use RNI, food manufacturer. So when they want to manufacture food, they want to know what the RNI is so that they can market and they can market their food well. Okay, and it is used by researchers a lot. Okay, in a public health. So the recommended nutrient intake is used not only as a clinician, because as a clinician, as a doctor, I think only for specific nutrients. Okay, it is the nutritionist would know more about it, but it is used very widely in the public health sector. Okay, more for the health promotion. Yeah. All right. What is okay? So next we are. So when you talk about, so next we're going to talk about balanced diet. So what is balanced diet? Anyone? What does it mean by balanced diet?
Balanced diet refers to a diet that contains a bit of all the food group,
Yes,
but in a proper amount.
All right. So so your diet should contains the combination. So just now we learn about the different components of food, of nutrients, right? So in your diet, you should have combination of all these components of nutrients in a proper balance, in a proper amount. Okay. So how do you know which one, the right proportion of your food, of your nutrient intake? What guideline would you use? Anyone? What is the usual guide that is used to show the right amount of food that you should take in your daily diet?
Food pyramid.
Okay, so the food pyramid. So I think you're all familiar with food pyramid. Okay, so somehow, okay, so this is so somehow the food, you will see food pyramid pamphlets here and there. Okay, so this food pyramid, this is, I think, in the latest mission, is taken from the latest Malaysian guideline. Okay, which was last published in 2010, I think. Okay, so if you see the food pyramid, okay, so the base of the pyramid, represented by the basis of the meal that should contain most in your daily diet. Okay, so this is the basis for most of the meal, okay, which should include your the unrefined or minimally processed of the carbohydrate. Okay, so you're talking about the unrefined carbohydrates. Okay, so most of your energy would still come from the lower level, or the base level of your pyramid. Okay, so your rice, your noodle, breads, your cereals, but you should choose the unrefined or the minimally processed cereals. Okay, so not the processed one. Okay, so the second tier are your fruits and vegetables. Okay, so these are a slightly lower energy source of food. Okay, but it contains lots of vitamins and minerals. Okay, so the third tier is your fish, these are your protein, yeah, your fish, your poultry, your meat, okay, and your dairy, yeah, the poultry, the milk, your fish, your legumes, okay, and at the very top, which is which you should take in the last in your diet, are your fats, your oil, and your sugar. Okay, so remember the sugar, although we say carbs, but we don't want, we want the non-sugar carbohydrates more. Okay, so we don't want the sugar parts of the carbs. Yeah, so that one you should eat less, your fats, your oil, your sugar, and less salt. Okay, so these are the food pyramids that, so your daily intake should actually look like this on your plate. Okay, so basically, so you cannot just eat your cereal, you also need to have some vegetables. Okay, so is fat bad for your diet? I mean, should you not eat fat? If you look at this pyramid,
We should eat, but less.
okay, so because we know the way of, like, when we say, okay, we don't want no fat, no carbs, and all that. Okay, so but actually when we eat our food, usually the food that we eat contain mixture of all this. Okay, so although we say there's no fat, there will be some fat also in that, in the food content. Okay, so fat is, even though you should eat less, but you should have fat. Okay, you should have fat. Protein, of course, even your carbohydrates, although we say a healthy diet, you use your carbs, but you need your carbs for your energy. So that is why it is very important, especially in those who wanted to lose weight and they go into certain diet regime. Okay, so they will end up having malnourished, because we say malnutrition is not only about not getting enough intake, it is not getting a balanced intake of certain components of your diet. Okay, so we have to be very, very careful when, because we know now everybody is very health conscious. It's not really health conscious, it's more of a body conscious. Okay, so there's a lot of diet regime that come out in the markets, but we have to very careful about this balanced diet. You need to advise your patient accordingly. Okay, you still need your carbs, you still need your fat. Okay, so as a doctor, you really have to advise your patient accordingly. Okay, so when you talk about the balanced diet, okay, that's because we know part of the function of nutrients is for energy. Okay, so this refers to your macronutrient basically. Okay, so when you talk about the recommended nutrition, okay, this is parallel as well as the energy balance. Okay, so the energy balance because energy is essential to maintain your life, so it needs to be balanced. Okay, so the balanced energy is reflected, so your balanced diet reflects the balance of energy. Okay, so you need energy mainly for your growth, for your metabolism as well. Okay, body temperature, for the movement, and voluntary or involuntary. So we know about this already. So energy is so why do we take certain food? Why do we want to eat? Okay, why we bother about nutrients? Okay, basically is the energy part that is the most important. Okay, so energy is, so you cannot run away talking about energy when you talk about nutrition. Okay, even why carbohydrate is at the base of your pyramid, again because it's where the source of energy is. Okay, so a little bit about energy. It is estimated by the measurement of heat, okay, by using calorimetry. Okay, there are two types of calorimetry. There is a direct and indirect method. Is a bit complicated. You don't have to know so much about it. Okay, but you can measure energy. Okay, that is produced by the body. Okay, there are a few ways. One is by the heat that is produced, and others are from the CO2 that is produced and the oxygen that is consumed. Okay, so there are a few ways of how energy is estimated. Okay, it is expressed by calorie. Okay, so you're all familiar with this because I know you're all counting your calorie. Okay, so it is expressed by calorie. Okay, so 1 calorie is equal to 4.184 joule. Okay, so it is also expressed as joule, calorie, joule. Okay, but most I think if you look at the nutrition information level on your food, okay, you might find that it is expressed as kilojoule or calorie. Okay, so please be clear. Calorie, okay, 1,000 calorie is equal to 1 kilocalorie. Okay, so 1 kilocalorie is expressed by 1 calorie with a capital C. Okay, so sometimes when you see the amount of calorie on your food label, okay, it is actually referred to 1 calorie with a big C, which is actually 1,000 calorie. Okay, so that is a bit of a misnomer there. Okay, so when you talk about 1 calorie, so you have to really look at, does it mean 1,000 calorie, which is 1 kilocalorie? Okay, so because 1 calorie or 1,000 calorie is the amount of heat necessary to raise your temperature by 1 kilogram of water. Okay, so that is how the temperature is used as a measurement. Okay, so of the calorie that is used up. Okay, because 1 calorie, okay, is the amount of heat necessary to raise the temperature of 1 kilogram water to raise by 1 degree Celsius. Okay, so that is where the basis of calorie. Okay, so usually in the food label it says 1 calorie with a big C. Okay, so it is correlate with joule or kilojoule. So the conversion unit is there. So 1 calorie is 4.184 joule. Okay, so the energy amounts of food is often expressed in the unit of kilojoule. So it is in a kilojoule range of amount. So it is related more with calorie with a big C. Okay, so you will notice that you go back and have a look at your food label and study the unit that is used. Okay, so that is the expression of energy. Okay, so like we say, nutrient is expressed as energy in a food label. Okay, so when you talk about energy balance, is the balance that is achieved when the amount of energy consumed versus the energy that is used. Okay, so your energy intake should be the same as the amount of energy that you use. Okay, so that is the recommended energy intake, which is based on how much energy you need to use. Okay, so that is another part of measurement of your nutrients in terms of energy. There is a recommended energy intake, which is based on how much energy that your body need to use, okay, for a day-to-day activity and for your metabolism. Okay, so when your energy intake is more than your energy expenditure, okay, so this will result in weight gain and vice versa. So this is how the concept that is used when you want to in your lose weight loss program. Okay, the amount of energy intake versus the energy expenditure. Okay, so when you are in a negative energy balance, that means you are losing weight. Okay, so that means your intake is less than your energy expenditure. Okay, so is it easy to lose weight? So basically, a reduction of 500 to 1,000 kilocalorie per day. If you have a reduction of 500 to 1,000 kilocalorie per day, you will lose half to 1 kg per week, and vice versa. Okay, so in order for you to lose about half a kg is 500 grams, 500 grams only. So 0.5 gram, 0.5 kg per week, in a week, not in a day, okay? So you need to have a reduction of about 500 to 1000 kilocalorie per day. All right, so you need a constant decrease in energy balance in order for you to see the result of weight loss basically. All right. Okay, so the estimation, I cannot, all right. So the estimation of daily energy requirement is more accurately measured by energy expenditure, okay, rather than assessment of dietary intake. All right, so how much energy that you need will be based on how much energy you're required to use, okay, rather than going by your dietary intake and all that, okay. So the recommended energy intake for adults at the age of 18 to 59, this is from Malaysian Dietary Guideline, okay, is 2000 kilocalorie per day for male and 1500 kilocalorie per day for female, okay. So bear in mind there are variation of recommended energy intake for the individual. This is a general recommended energy intake, but if you were to specify the energy requirement for individual, you will find that this varies, depends on the age, depends on your gender, depends on the build, your body your body build, depends on the composition, depends on your physical activity, okay. So meaning to say, if you are a heavily built person, individual, then your recommended energy is higher, okay. So that means you need to use more energy, okay. So in this case, for a female, for example, if you want to have a balanced energy, balanced diet, balanced energy, you have to have at least 1500 kilocalorie intake per day, okay. If you want to lose weight, okay, so meaning if you take 1000 kilocalorie per day, you already have a negative balance, okay. You already have a negative energy balance, so that means you can already lose some weight from there, as opposed to a male, okay. If you need about 2000 kilocalorie per day, okay. You need 2000 kilocalorie per day. So if you take if you take 1500 kilocalorie, okay, so you have already achieved your a negative energy balance, okay. All right, so when you want to link your energy with your RNI, okay, so based on your RNI, okay, if you want to link your energy or your RNI, so how much carbs do you need, how much fat do you need, how much protein do you need, okay. So we concentrate on this because these are the three nutrients that generate energy. So based on the energy intake, okay, the National Coordination Committee of Food Nutrition recommended that 55 to 60% of your energy should comes from your carbs, from your carbohydrate. About 30% should come from your fat, and about 10 to 20% to come from your protein. Okay, so these are the distribution of where your energy, okay, so we say 2000 kilocalorie, 1000 kilocalorie, where are these energy should come from? Okay, so in your diet, okay, 60% of that energy should come from your carbs, about 25 to 30% should come from the fat, and 10 to 20% should come from your protein. Okay, so that is how it is calculated. Okay, so I think you've learned this as well in your metabolism. Okay, so how much energy that is actually generated from your carbs, fat, and protein. Okay, we talk a bit about alcohol later. Okay, because these are the three components. Okay, just now we talk about the percentage of the energy which should come from these three components of diet. But with the same amount of carbohydrate, fat, and protein, how much energy, if the whole amount is burnt, metabolized, how much energy can you produce from that? So basically, if you look at this table, you will find that fat, okay, if you have one gram of carbs, 1 gram of fat, 1 gram of protein, if all this component is burnt, okay, fat will produce the most energy. Okay, so that's why we say fat is the energy dense nutrient. Okay, fatty food is an energy dense nutrient, because if the 100% of this fat is burnt, okay, this will produce most energy as compared to your carbs and your protein. Okay, but again, when you take the same amount of food, okay, that doesn't mean that all the food will be metabolized at the same way or the same rate. Okay, so there are certain percentage that means not all. For example, if you take protein, for example, if you take 1 gram of protein, okay, it doesn't mean that you will yield 4 kilocalorie, because approximately only 92% of this protein will be absorbed. Okay, so only 92% of this protein that can actually be burnt and be used as energy, and partly the nitrogen will be just eliminated, unchanged in the urine. Okay, so there's actually less energy that is yielded by this protein and all this. So there is a lot of plus and minus of how much energy that is yielded. So and we say carbohydrate is the most efficient source of energy, because it is well metabolized and can be used up as energy source, the main energy source in the body. Okay, so you've learned about starvation and all that, right? When you run out of carbs, then only you will use your fat and protein as your source of energy. Okay, alcohol, in a way, it produces a lot of energy when it is burnt, but it is not considered as nutrients because it doesn't promote health. Okay, it doesn't promote growth, body repair and all that. It is basically interferes. So we talked earlier on the what do you call it, on the definition of nutrients. Okay. All right. So that is energy intake. Okay, so that is energy intake. So perhaps we just skip this part. So that therefore, when you take at energy, you should know which energy is high in which food is high in energy, which food is less in energy, but it's also which food is nutrition dense, which food is energy dense. Okay, so this is also just the recap on your metabolism. I'm not going to go through this. Okay, how your carbs, protein, and lipids is metabolized for the production of energy. Okay, all right. So next, very quickly, I want to go through energy expenditure. Just now we talked about energy intake. Okay, so we mentioned that for us to measure the energy intake, we want to look at the energy expenditure. Okay, how much energy expenditure of a person. Okay, so that means energy expenditure of an individual is different. Okay, so how much energy required is based on how much energy a person spend for their basic activity, the basic needs of body function. Okay, so the body expenditure is the combination of three major components, which is your basal metabolic rate, basal metabolism, your physical activity, and your food consumption. So basically, about 60 to 75% of your energy expenditure are the energy that is used and needed for your basal metabolism. Okay, what does it mean by basal metabolism? Anyone? Anyone? What does it mean by basal metabolism?
I think it's like the minimum amount of energy required to like maintain life.
Okay, what to maintain life? Okay, so even if you are sleeping, okay, your body is working, something like that. Even you are sleeping, your body is working. Okay, so don't think that you don't need energy when you're not moving. Okay, because there is always a basal metabolism. The metabolism is always there in your body. You are still breathing, so that means your respiratory muscle is still moving. Your heart muscle is still moving for your heartbeat. Okay, your cells are still metabolizing for your for the process in the body. So these are the basic energy that is needed in a person for the basic at a basal condition. Okay, so the basal metabolism is the main component of your energy expenditure. Okay, the physical activity is the additional of energy that is needed. So this is that is fluctuating. Okay, so it depends on how active you are. Okay, so the more active a person is, the higher energy expenditure or energy. So the higher energy that you spend, so that means the higher energy input that you need. Okay, so the energy requirement for an active person is higher as compared to energy requirement of a sedentary person. Okay, and food consumption. Okay, so even if you eat, okay, even if you eat, we yield energy, but we also expend energy. Okay, so so the food consumption, the energy from the food consumption, we call it the thermic effect of food, because when you consume food, you produce heat. Okay, we call it thermic effect of energy. It is about 10% of your BMR is the energy that is from your food consumption. So we learn later that different types of food have a different thermic effect. Okay, so the fourth component is energy expended for adaptation. This is not usually calculated as part of your energy expenditure. Okay, this is more for adaptation of a certain condition, so it is not a long-term kind of thing. Okay, for example, in a cold situation or fever, in a sickness, so you have a different amount of energy expenditure. Okay, so that's the three components of the three major component energy expenditure are from your basal metabolism, physical activity, and food consumption. Okay, I just want to go a little bit on the respiratory quotient. Okay, respiratory quotient is a measurement that is used to sort of it is used for many things basically. So it is basically the ratio of the volume of CO2 released to the volume of oxygen consumed by a body tissue at any time. So is volume of CO2 over volume of oxygen consumed. Okay, this can be measured by indirect calorimetry. Okay, so why RQ? I put here RQ because it is actually used to show the metabolic status of a person. Okay, so there is a specific RQ value for these three components. Okay, because it based on the biochemical structure, how many carbons and how many oxygen do they have, and if it is metabolized, how much CO2 and oxygen that is yield. Okay, so basically glucose have one RQ value. Okay, glucose or your carbs. Your fat have RQ value of about 0.7. Protein has an RQ value of about 0.9. Okay, so when you measure your RQ value, okay, if you have the RQ, so in a normal person, which when the body metabolize, generate energy from the mixture of the diet. Okay, so the mixture of glucose, fat, and protein. So a mixed nutrient lah, a normal mixture of diet. So you will yield the RQ of about 0.8. Okay, so if you have lower than that, about 0.7, so that means a person is metabolizing more fat and protein. So that means it's coming towards malnutrition. Okay, so decrease in feeding. Okay, if you yield RQ value is about 1. Okay, so if you measure the RQ value, okay, so it come up at about 1. So it means that you use up you are using mostly glucose or your carbs for your energy. Okay, in a person which is overfeeding, okay, you will have your RQ value of more than 1. So it is basically used it is used for many other things, but in terms of nutrition and energy, it is used to sort of determine the metabolic status of a person. Okay, it can also be used to estimate the energy expenditure. Okay, so it is used Okay, so this is how, so the RQ, the indirect, it is used, it used indirect calorimetry methods. Okay, so it is very portable. Okay, so it can use at the bedside of a patient. Okay, so it used more of a respirometer. Okay, that's where you can get your RQ value from. So it is used to measure the nutritional parameters, like I mentioned earlier. Okay, it is also used to measure your metabolic rate, okay, in terms of total energy expenditure. It's also used for aerobic fitness to see whether a person is using aerobic or anaerobic metabolism. So if you have high RQ value, so is aerobic, low RQ is anaerobic, so something like that. Okay, so yeah, so that is respiratory cohesion. Because if you, I think in your nutrition book, if you were to learn about it, you will come across the RQ. There are many ways of measuring the energy expenditure. Okay, so one way is the RQ value. Okay, so just now we talk about energy expenditure, the three components. So first is basal metabolic rate, right? It is defined as the amount of energy required to carry out basic process in maintaining life. So, for example, cellular activity, heartbeat, and respiration. Okay, so you measure, so when you want to measure your basal metabolic rate, okay, so you want to make sure that the person is completely at rest, okay, and at a comfortable temperature, because the change in temperature will affect the basal metabolic rate. Okay, so it has to be a comfortably warm temperature and at least 12 hours after meal, because you know we don't want the BMR to be affected by the energy expenditure from your digestion. Okay, so this is how a person should be prepared before you measure the metabolic rate. Okay, so it is calculated by measuring your oxygen consumption and CO2 production. So we talk about QR just now. Okay, so BMR contribute about 60 to 75% of your daily energy expenditure. All right. Okay, so these are the list of the factors that affecting your BMR. So the BMR will differ from person to person, okay, depending on the age, okay. So the elderly, the BMR is lower in the elderly people, okay, because there is, so the main thing that is affected by BMR is basically the amount of lean muscle that you have in the body. Of course, on top of everything, the lean body mass is one of the most significant things that would affect your BMR as well. Okay, so for example, in a patient, in the elderly patient, the BMR is low not only because there is less inactivity, but because there is decrease in lean muscle in the elderly person. Okay, in the patient, in a tall person, the BMR is high because of increase in body surface area. All right, so in a neonate, in a children, in a pregnancy, the BMR is higher because they are growing. Okay, in different gender, male usually have higher BMR because there is more lean tissue as compared to female. Okay, fever and stress, this actually fall under the adaptation. Okay, so when you're having fever and you're stressed, your basal metabolism is higher. Okay, so that's why you don't measure your basal metabolism when you are not at the most comfortable situation. Okay, so your BMR will increase when you have a fever or stress. The heat, okay, extreme heat or extreme cold, okay, will actually increase your basal metabolic rate because of the process of compensation for it. Okay, so the process of compensation for heat when it's cold and the process of compensation to lose the heat when it's hot, okay, will actually increase the BMR. Again, malnutrition, starvation will decrease your BMR because of decrease in lean body mass. Thyroid hormone is known to, the function is actually to increase for your basal metabolism. Okay, so increase in thyroid hormone will increase your basal metabolic rate. Okay, some foods such as caffeine will increase, smoking can increase BMR. Okay, so the BMR of a person varies different on so many conditions. Okay, so physical activities, we talk about it, the use of energy expend for voluntary movement. Okay, so when we talk about BMR, is for involuntary movement of your muscles, such as your respiratory muscle, your myocardium, your heart muscles. Okay, so when we talk about physical activities, are the energy expended for voluntary movement of your skeletal muscles. Okay, so again, it depends on the muscle mass and body weight and the type of activity. So the more muscle mass and the body weight, the more energy you would expend. Okay, so the more energy you expend, that means the more energy that you need. Okay, so the longer and the frequent and the more intense activity, the more energy expend. So that is just logic. Okay, so the next component is the thermic effect of food. So I mentioned when you consume food, you expend energy. Okay, so not only you yield energy from that, but you require energy to process the food. Okay, process food, digestion, absorption, transportation, metabolism, and storage of food. That all requires energy. Okay, and all this process of food will produce heat. That is why it is called thermic effect. Okay, so it contributes about 10% of net energy expenditure of your BMR. Okay, so varies with different type of food and of course the amount of food and how frequent they take the food. Okay, so generally when you take protein, okay, your energy, the percentage of thermal effect is higher when you consume protein. Okay, so that means you will need more energy in the processing of food when you take a higher amount of protein in your diet. Okay, so this percentage of thermal effect is calculated based on the energy expended during the digestion and versus the energy content of food. So remember, we say that when you consume food, of course you yield energy. Remember the earlier table that I gave you, 4%, 16% protein and carbs yield more or less about the same amount of energy. Fat has higher energy, but also you have to also consider the energy expended, okay, in the processing of that components of food. Okay, so this is where the thermic effect of food percentage come up. Okay, so the energy expended during the digestion versus the energy content of food. So that means because the energy content of protein is low and the the energy expended for protein is higher, then it has a high percentage of thermal effect. Okay, so adaptive thermogenesis, like we say, is just a one-off kind of thing. Okay, it's meant to adapt any change in circumstances, such as extreme cold, overfeeding, starvation. So this will actually affect your BMR. Okay, so it is not specifically included in the calculation of energy requirement. Okay, all right. So this table shows basically the distribution of your energy expenditure of an individual, okay, depending on the types of activity. Okay, so A, if you look at the percentage, your resting metabolic rate remains the main components of how energy is used in the body. Okay, so it is higher, the percentage is higher in a person with sedentary lifestyle. Okay, so it's about 75%. So in a person with physically active person, so the energy expend for your resting metabolic rate is lower, about 60%, because more percentage is taken up by the physical activities. So, but all in all, if you look at the pie chart, you will see that the thermic effect is more or less always about 10%, okay, 8 to 10%, okay, of the whole energy expenditure. All right, so the metabolic rate, the basal metabolic rate requires about 60 to 75%. So the physical activities, because it will depend on the physical activities of a person. Okay. So do you all want a break? We have another half an hour. Do you all need a break? 5 minutes break, maybe? Yes?
Can doctor.
We have a 5 minutes break. We start again at
10:27.
10:27, yeah? Okay, because we still have 2 other components to go through.
Okay, doctor.
All right? Okay, can we continue?
Yes, doctor, go ahead.
All right. Okay, let's continue because we still have quite a lot to cover. Okay, I'll try to make it brief because most of the second part is about the macronutrients. So most of it, especially the metabolism part, you already covered in the previous sessions. Yeah. Okay, so it's just a recall. It's just that we're going to talk about the macronutrients in a nutrition approach. Okay, so as you all know, macronutrients are carbs, your fat, your protein. Okay, so first we talk about carbohydrate. Okay, from the names, it consists of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So generally, okay, I mean, there are so many ways you can classify your carbohydrates. Okay, so for this lecture, I classify it into available carbs and unavailable carbohydrate. Okay, which is available carbohydrate means those carbohydrate which is digested and into to form sugar. Okay, so these are the carbohydrate which is metabolized to produce energy. So unavailable carbohydrate, that is the form which is cannot be digested and do not produce energy. So these are actually your fibers. Okay, I mean there are many ways of classifying this carbohydrate. Even some book will put fiber separately and sugar separately. Okay, but anyway, so this is how I classify the carbohydrates. So your sugars, your so under your available carbs are your sugars, and the starch, your starch. Okay, and under unavailable carbohydrates are your fibers. So the fiber, or some books call it non-starch polysaccharide, okay, or NSP. So your fiber can be divided into insoluble fiber and soluble fiber. So we're going to talk about that in a more detail when we talk about carbohydrates. So basically, sugar is also a carbohydrate. Okay, some book put it separately under sugar. Okay, but it is carbohydrate, and starch is the plant-based. Okay, so all this will hydrolyze into glucose. Okay, and if you inspect your food label, your nutritional facts, you will find there fiber, okay, is put under carbohydrates. Okay, total carb. So you will have dietary fiber. Okay, so that is dietary fiber versus total fiber. So fiber is basically the complex or mixture of plants material that is resistant to digestion. So it's basically resistant to the digestive enzymes. I'm not going to talk about how it is digested and all that, because I suppose you've learned that earlier. Okay, but it is resistant to digestive enzyme, and it consists of the component of plant walls. Okay, so it is a plant material, mostly plant material. Okay, so in the food there is dietary fiber. Okay, so that means the fiber that is originally present in the food. Okay, for example, if the food is the fruit base, so the dietary fiber is how much fiber from that fruit, and the manufacturer might also add other fibers, okay, in the in the food. Okay, so that is dietary fiber and the total fiber. So this is actually the total fiber is the dietary fiber plus the added fiber. So in your food, sometimes it is processed and it is manufactured to contain more fiber than the original dietary fiber itself. Okay, so insoluble versus soluble fiber. So the insoluble fiber, the actual substance in a soluble fiber consists of cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin. Okay, mostly found in leafy vegetables, in your wheat and the whole grain. Okay, so the insoluble fiber is beneficial because it actually it bulks to the stool. Okay, because it is not digested. Okay, so it actually absorb water. Okay, and it soften the stool. Okay, the fiber, it binds to water, so it soften the stool and makes the stool to be more bulky, so it bulks. So because of that, it will speed the transit of the stool. Okay, it speed up the transit of the stool in your GIT. Okay, so it will prevent constipation. Okay, it prevents hemorrhoids and other GIT conditions such as diverticulosis and irritable bowel disease. So it is more useful basically to regulate bowel movement. Okay, so basically it increases the speed of stool, so it increases the peristalsis, so therefore it decreases constipation, so it helps with constipation. Okay, because it causes the increase in bulk of stool, is actually believed to it can remove the diseased part of the mucosal wall. Okay, by preventing constipation, it also helps in many GIT conditions such as diverticulosis and hemorrhoids. Okay, because this particular condition is can develop with constipation. Okay, so hemorrhoid, when you strain, then you can develop hemorrhoid, as well as diverticulosis. It will be worsened when there is constipation. So because of that, it's always advisable to take fiber. So basically the insoluble fiber. So it will help the regulation of your bowel movement. Okay, it is also said that the fiber has a role to prevent colon cancer. Although there are many arguments on this, but it is believed that this fiber is one of the in fact, it is put as one of the decreased intake of fiber. It is included as one of the risk of developing colon cancer. Okay, but of course it has to be other risks as well on top of that. So it is listed as one of the risks of developing colon cancer. Okay, so it is believed that it can prevent colon cancer by it can keep certain optimal pH of the intestine. Okay, so it prevents the microbes that can lead to cancerous on the colon. Okay, there are still there's a lot of argument as to how this fiber can prevent colon cancer. So one of the explanation is that is the helping the colon at the to keep optimal pH, so it will actually prevent certain microbes that has a potential to contribute to cancerous to carcinogenesis basically, okay, and it can also bind or dilute toxic and carcinogenic substance that may stay there to cause the cancer, okay, that so that means it increase the transit, so it speed up the transit of any carcinogenic substance, should there be any carcinogenic substance that is exposed to the colonic mucosa and expose the colonic mucosa to cancer. So by increasing transit, it will prevent the colonic cancer. Okay, so that is the role of the insoluble fiber. So basically, in the regulation of bowel movement mainly. Okay. So we go next to the soluble fiber. So soluble fiber is it is partly dissolved in water as opposed to the insoluble fiber. Insoluble fiber does not dissolve in water. So soluble fiber is partly dissolved, not all, but partly dissolved in water, and it comes in a form of gel. So the substance is the gum, pectin, and mucilage. It's from the plant. Okay, so the role is more on a help to reduce your blood cholesterol and to regulate the blood sugar level. Okay, it is found mostly in your beans, and fruits and vegetables, and in your oats. Okay, so the benefits of a soluble fiber also is absorb water, but it doesn't really make the food your stool bulky. Okay, so it absorbs water from the gut. Okay, so it makes the stool soft but not bulky, so it doesn't really increase the speed of the stool. Okay, it doesn't increase the peristalsis because it doesn't make the food bulky, but instead it slows down the speed of passage of food through the gut, so it gives more feeling of fullness. So that is how it helps in weight loss. Okay, it gives a feeling of fullness. So when you take your oats and all that, it gives a feeling of fullness. It absorbs water. It doesn't speed up. In fact, it slows down the speed of passage of food. Okay. It prevents, most importantly, it prevents the type 2 diabetes, and it lowered down the LDL cholesterol. How it prevents the type 2 diabetes? Basically, it slows down the absorption of glucose from the intestine. Okay, so if you take glucose, carbs with a high glycemic index, that means when you take the carbohydrate, immediately you see your blood sugar raise up. So these are the high glycemic index food. Okay, so these are the food that contribute most to type 2 diabetes. So fiber will decrease the absorption of glucose from your gut into the blood. So that means it prevents the high spikes of glucose in the body. So that means so it is low in glycemic index. Okay, so it is low in glycemic index. All right. So it prevents type 2 diabetes. It also lowers your LDL cholesterol, the total cholesterol, and your LDL cholesterol. How it lowers the LDL cholesterol? It can do it in so many ways. Okay. but I described here, it basically it binds to the bile acid in the bowel. Okay, by binding to the bile acid, so this bile acids will be removed from the body. Okay, so you will have less bile acids in the blood. Okay, so this low in so the body want to synthesize more of a bile acid. Okay, so to synthesize the bile acid, the body will use up the cholesterol. So more cholesterol will be used up to form bile acid that is lost that is lost in your gut. Okay, so therefore there will be decrease in your blood cholesterol level. Okay, so that is one. But this soluble fiber itself can bind to cholesterol and reduce the cholesterol absorption. Okay, so those are the ways of how it can decrease the cholesterol level. Okay, so also by the increase in slowing down the passage of food, feeling of fullness also will decrease the overall food intake. Okay, so this can also contribute to decrease in cholesterol and decrease in sugar. Okay, so these fiber are not without unwanted effect. There's also side effect or more of an unwanted effect rather than side effect, okay, of the fiber. So flatulence and bloatedness. So some people, when they eat your oats especially, okay, you will have bloatedness and flatulence because they are metabolized by amount of fiber. Also will lead to dehydration, okay, because it absorbs water, it binds to water, and it will, so you will be dehydrated. So be very careful to advise your patient, if you take a lot of fiber, okay, also take a lot of water, okay, because you can be dehydrated. Okay, sorry, I'm rushing because we are running out of time. Okay, so next is fat. Okay, it is source of energy. I'm not going to talk about function of fats because you have learned about it already. You can read here, there's a list of function of fats. So never say that you don't need fat in your diet. Okay, so most important in terms of dietary fat, remember there are three types of fat: saturated fatty acid, monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fatty acids. Biochemical structure, metabolism, you learn this in your metabolism part. Okay, just a little bit on the benefits or the role of these different type of fats in your diet. Okay, saturated versus versus unsaturated fat are their role in the risk of cardiovascular disease. Okay, so if you were to take fat in your diet, okay, in which you have to take fat, you have to opt to choose unsaturated fat over saturated fat. Okay, so you can take fat, you have to take fat, but use unsaturated fat over you do not take saturated fat. Okay, so so the source of these different type of fat you have there. Okay, so so basically it it will affect your cholesterol level, especially your LDL level. Okay, so if you take saturated fat, you will have high risk of cardiovascular disease because there'll be increase in your LDL cholesterol. Okay, monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats are lower risk because there'll be less LDL cholesterol, okay, and trans fatty acid, okay. I'm sure you have seen a lot of this in your food label, okay. Sometimes you have cookies and they say there are no zero trans fatty acid, okay. So what is trans fatty acid? What is trans fatty acid? Anyone?
Is it like something that can be both, like
Hmm?
both unsaturated and saturated at the same time, like,
Okay,
or half?
okay. Trans fatty acid is actually unsaturated fatty acid, but it is hydrogenated. Okay, so it is a form of unsaturated fatty acid, which is supposed to be good, but it is processed in a way that is hydrogenated. Okay, so it is become more of a solid form. So it is processed, so such as your biscuits, your butter, your margarine. So these are trans fatty acid. So although it is unsaturated, but it is actually it is hydrogenated, so it becomes bad. Okay, so you don't want trans fatty acid. Okay, because it has been processed. Okay, so in a
Okay.
way, yeah.
I just wanted to ask something. Coconut oil. It's written that coconut oil is saturated fat. It means it's not good for health for elder people, right? Because there is a high risk of cardiovascular disease.
Mm-hmm.
So what about the fruit itself, the coconut fruit itself? Because I stay here in Africa, and here in the country I stay, it's like very famous to eat it as much as you can because it's so easily available. It's like cuisine here. So is it bad for health having a lot of coconut, like
Well,
coconut or?
we take a lot of coconut here as well in Malaysia. It's not only in your country. Of course, okay. Although we say saturated, monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, we have a lot of food which have mixture of everything, right? The food that we eat have a mixture of fat, protein, carbs, and all that. Yeah, so it cannot be just one component on its own. Okay, so I would say that you can take it, but it has to be tailored down, because it comes under saturated fat, okay, as opposed to your olive oil and your sunflower oil. So these are the polyunsaturated fat, okay. In here also we use a lot of palm oil, coconut oil, but they might have other benefits.
I was told that it's very good for your health or for your stomach. Like it's very good for your stomach health. Like if you're not having if you're having upset stomach or something, have a lot of coconut and other stuff. So because it's a fruit, so it's good or something like that. I don't know.
It might have other benefit because it's not only fat that is in there, it's probably other things as well. Maybe some minerals, some vitamins. I'm not quite sure myself, but when you talk about the classification, it comes under that. Yeah, so we choose olive oil over palm oil, for example. Okay, so trans fatty acid are the processed one, hydrogenated, polyunsaturated. So there is a no. So it's also increase the risk of cardiovascular disease because it will increase your LDL and it will decrease your HDL. Okay, so it is something
Okay,
that
thank
you
you,
want.
doctor.
You're welcome. So it is something that you want to avoid or you want to tailor down. All right. Okay. So yeah, so these are example. Okay, so your polyunsaturated fat are your linoleic and alpha linolenic oil. Yeah, your sunflower oil. Okay, your fish oil. So yeah, we talk about your essential fatty acid. Okay, omega-3. Okay, this is very famous. Okay, so these are the essential fatty acid, that is the fatty acid that you need to take from your diet. Okay, so these are actually your polyunsaturated fatty acid fat. Okay, so these are essential fatty acid, your omega-3 fatty acid. It comes in a form of alpha linolenic, okay, EPA and DHA. Okay, so these are good. So you have omega-3 and omega-6. Okay, so one is linolenic, one is linoleic. Okay, so these are essential fatty acid in which you can found in the, you have to take it in the food. Okay, it is not synthesized in the body. Okay, so these are also, these have this part of polyunsaturated fatty acid which is beneficial for your health. Okay, so these are the benefits of your essential fatty acid. It prevents atherosclerosis and it is thought to decrease the breast carcinoma. So yeah. Okay. What is the difference between fat and cholesterol? You find out about this. Okay, we don't have time to go through this, but these are the things that we really can be sometimes confusing, because if you look at the nutritional facts, you have total fat and you also have cholesterol. Okay, because some people might put cholesterol and fat together, but because you learn your biochemistry, okay, so you know that cholesterol are the different and fat is different. Yeah. Okay, we're not going to go through that. We're running out of time actually. Next is protein. Okay, so functions, it becomes source of energy when carbs and fat is insufficient. So you learn about this before. Okay, the amino acid, okay, it is the protein. Okay, so protein is based on the content of amino acid sequence. Okay, so it comes in a variety of source, like in your meat, it is called biosin, your eggs is called albumin, milk is casein, in wheat is gluten. So these are all protein. So again, so when we talk about wheat, it's not, your wheat contain fiber, it contains your carbohydrate, it also contains proteins, you know. So the food does not contain only one component. It's a mixture of a few components. Essential amino acid, also you have learned this, right? You have learned in your metabolism, right? Essential amino acid. So these are the few types of amino acid that cannot be synthesized in the body, okay, or unable to be synthesized sufficient amount in the body. So you need to have this, to take this in your diet, okay? When you talk about high biological value food, you're talking about food which contain all the essential amino acids, okay, such as your milk and dairy food. Okay, so that's when food with low biological value means food which contain few essential amino acids. So that's just what it means. Okay. Okay. So we go to the next component. What do you have after this? Because I feel that I need to steal a bit of your time. What do you have? Do you have any lecture after this?
No, I don't think so, doctor.
Okay. Is it okay if we stretch a bit of time? Yeah, I need to stretch it a bit, like, because I told you before, the lecture is actually very long. We're given very little time. Okay, maybe 15 minutes. Okay, I try to make this
Okay.
as
Okay, doctor.
okay.
It's fine.
You are free, right? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So
Yes.
so next we are going to talk about malnutrition. Okay, malnutrition. We say that when the nutrition is imbalanced. Okay, so it can either be undernutrition or overnutrition. Okay, so because we're talking about macronutrient, when we talk about undernutrition, for this lecture, I'm going to concentrate on protein energy malnutrition. So that means imbalance of the energy. In this case, undernutrition is decrease in protein and energy. Okay, so PEM, okay, in general, there are two major forms, kwashiorkor and marasmus. Okay, so what is kwashiorkor? Kwashiorkor is occur due to dietary deficiency in protein, decrease in protein. Okay, so it may be, so usually in patient with kwashiorkor, there is decrease in food intake, especially decrease in protein. It may be accompanied by decrease in vitamins and minerals as well. Okay, because it's generally occur in a rural area. Okay, they take diet, but their diet are deficient in protein. They took more of a starchy diet, for example. Okay, because it's fulfilling. So they end up taking diet with low in protein. Okay, so they can develop kwashiorkor. Okay, it may be accompanied by decrease in other components of nutrients as well, such as vitamins and minerals. Okay, it can occur in early childhood when the child weaned on low protein diet after prolonged breastfeeding. So that means you know there are certain times that you need to stop breastfeeding, then you need to introduce food, okay, because after certain age you need to top up because your breastfeed doesn't give, it's not sufficient for all the components of your nutrient. Okay, so when in a rural area, usually there is prolonged breastfeeding. Okay, so when they start to introduce diet, okay, so that diet is low in protein. So this is generally usually how it occurs. Okay, but of course it can occur at any time, any place, whenever there is dietary deficiency in protein. You can develop kwashiorkor. So because of that, okay, the clinical manifestation is instead of decrease in weight, okay, because you imagine, because we say malnutrition, okay, we would expect there's a decrease in weight, but the patient usually have a normal weight, but they have edema instead. What is edema? What is edema? Anyone?
Problem.
Huh?
Is accumulation of fluid in any part of the body or something like that.
In any part of your body. Okay, accumulation of fluid, that is correct. Okay, so basically it refers to accumulation of fluid in your interstitial space. You learn in your biology, right? Foundation, the intracellular, extracellular, you have intravascular, you have interstitial. Okay, so your fluid, you have fluid in the cell, okay, you have fluid in your vessel. Okay, so when most of this fluid, so there are certain these are all this concept you have learned, I'm very sure you have learned in your biology, okay, in your foundation or even in your secondary school. Okay, so for the water to be kept intravascular, okay, it is governed by your osmotic pressure and your hydrostatic pressure, right? Okay, so if you have increase in the osmotic pressure in your vessel, in your blood vessel, will keep the water inside the vessel. Okay, so if you have the hydrostatic pressure, so the amount hydrostatic pressure is governed by the amount of water in the vessel. Okay, if you have increase in water in the blood circulation, okay, you will have increase in hydrostatic pressure, so it will draw the water out of the vessel to gain the balance amount of pressure between osmotic and oncotic pressure. Remember? So hydrostatic pressure will draw the water out, osmotic pressure will hold the water in the vessel. Okay, so in case of albumin, albumin is the substance which actually determine your hydrostatic, your osmotic pressure, right? So if you have low in albumin in your plasma, in your blood, okay, so your osmotic pressure will be low in your blood vessels. So that means you cannot hold your water. So your water will go out into your interstitial space. So you will be edematous. Okay, so you will have the accumulation of fluid out on the interstitial space. Okay, so in the vessel is actually decrease in water. So you become edematous. Okay, full with fluid. All right, because of the low in protein, low in albumin. Okay, and you will have muscle wasting. Okay, so you actually have muscle wasting because you have decrease in protein. Okay, because you basically also have decrease in energy as well. So you have you have muscle wasting because of decrease in protein. Because you need protein to build up your muscle, right? Okay, but generally physically you won't see so much of muscle wasting because the whole body is edematous. Okay, but in actual fact, you have muscle wasting because you cannot build the muscle due to low in protein. Okay, you will have fatty liver as well. Okay, because okay, because of decrease in synthesis of lipoprotein to excrete the fat. Okay, because of decreased protein, decrease in lipoprotein, so you cannot excrete the fat, so you have fatty acid accumulate in the liver. Growth retardation, of course, because you need protein for your growth, so you'll have changes in your skin, in the hair pigmentation. Okay, because you know the protein needs for your skin. Okay, and somehow your subcutaneous fat are preserved. Okay, because your fat is not affected. Okay, so because of decrease in protein, okay, because protein is need for your immune system, so there is increase in susceptibility for infection in this patient. Okay, so there is also poor wound healing as well because the healing process needs protein. So basically the clinical manifestation of kwashiorkor is based on low protein, decrease in protein. Okay, so the next type of protein energy malnutrition is marasmus. Okay, so marasmus is occur due to deficiency, dietary deficiency in protein and energy. Okay, when we talk about kwashiorkor, we are concentrating only in deficiency in protein. Even the sign and symptoms also based in deficiency in protein. In marasmus, we are talking about deficiency in protein as well as energy. Okay, so we are talking about decrease in energy, okay, and in decrease in protein, and how protein is used up to generate energy because of overall negative energy balance. Okay, so this one is more common in urban area due to incorrect bottle feeding, okay, or early weaning. So that means, as opposed to this is just a general example of when it can occur, but that doesn't mean that you cannot have marasmus in rural area. Okay, it can occur in both ways. Okay, so due to incorrect bottle feeding, so you know when, so this one has something to do with early weaning. So that means you wean your child earlier and you start off bottle feeding earlier. And you all should know that when you introduce bottle feeding, you have to correctly use according to the formula, certain amount of water and certain amount of milk. Okay, so maybe when they start to use a lot of bottle feeding at an earlier age, there is over dilution of milk. So that means they're not getting enough nutrients from the milk because of over dilution. Okay, and also the preparation with less hygienic. There's also infection associated with this, as opposed to breastfeeding, where there is a lower risk of infection because it's directly from the breast and you do not prepare it manually. So maybe precipitated by gastroenteritis. So when you start the bottle feeding earlier, not only how it prepares the dilution, the hygiene of it, how it is stored. Okay, so it might be stale and the child is given stale milk. Okay, so generally clinical manifestation, there will be poor body weight because of decrease in energy, low energy balance, remember. So you have decrease in body weight, growth retardation as well because decrease in protein. Okay, loss of subcutaneous fat layer. Okay, so you will have wrinkled skin. Okay, because remember, decrease in energy, so you use up your fat as energy, as opposed to kwashiorkor, you don't have a problem with energy, your only problem is with protein. So you can maintain the subcutaneous fat layer. Okay, so in here you have wrinkled skin, muscle wasting. Muscle wasting in this case can be because of low in protein, as well as the protein being used up for energy because the overall increase in energy intake. Okay, so you'll have thin limbs, prominent ribs. So there's certain, okay, so this is an example of how it looks like. Okay, you see the different. A is marasmus, where you have the whole body emaciation. Okay, loss of muscle mass, loss of subcutaneous fat, where you have wrinkled skin. Okay, emaciated body. Okay, as opposed to kwashiorkor in picture B, where there is generalized edema. Okay, if you can appreciate the swelling. Okay, so actually there is a muscle wasting, but you can't see the muscle wasting because of the whole fluid accumulation. Okay, you have ascites, puffiness of face and legs, so you basically can see edema. Okay, so both sides are malnutrition. Okay, so this diagram show how actually the syndrome of kwashiorkor and marasmus, okay, can actually progress to meet at marasmic kwashiorkor kind of condition. Okay, so that means kwashiorkor can eventually go into marasmus, and marasmus can eventually go, marasmus can actually lead to kwashiorkor. Okay, so we call it marasmic kwashiorkor. So you see the difference, how it progressed. Okay, so when you talk about marasmus, okay, so you say early weaning, you start the child with a bottle feed, so unequal dilution, dirty formula feed, so you will start to have more gastroenteritis. Okay, so on top of that, remember there is also decrease in protein. Okay, so with the infection and low in protein, so the patient, so there is overall decrease in energy balance. Okay, so the patient will fall under negative energy balance, which is like starvation. Okay, because when you have infection, you will have increased need of protein as well. Okay, and increased need of energy. So it is like a vicious cycle. So this is when you start to develop marasmus. Okay, so for the kwashiorkor, late predral weaning, so we thought the patient have decreased in protein because of prolonged breastfeeding, and when they start with a diet is more on a starchy diet rather than protein diet, so they start to develop infection. So like I mentioned earlier, when you start to develop infection, you need more protein for your antibody. So because of the baseline decrease in protein to start with, then the patients start to have a negative nitrogen balance. So this is when you start to have kwashiorkor. Okay. All right. So next is obesity. Okay. Obesity, this is the opposite to the protein energy malnutrition. Okay. So it is a wild world problem. The BMI of over defined of BMI of over 25 kilogram per meter square. Okay, so you know about BMI, right? Okay, 25 is overweight, 30 is obese. Okay, and it is because of increase in consumption of more energy dense nutrients. Okay, so there are how obesity occur. There is not only one factor, there is a combination of various factors, be it genetics, environment factor, food intake, appetite, energy expenditure. So energy expenditure, we talk about the lifestyle, okay, the control of appetite. Okay, so I want to concentrate here more on the, because genetic, there's nothing much you can do. Environment factors, there's a cultural and all that. Okay, food intake is the balance between energy intake and spend. Okay, so control of appetite. Okay, a little bit of a control and appetite, because it has been used more, it has been studied more and more now. It has been used as a means to treat obesity. Okay, they are targeting at what are the substances involved in the regulation of appetite. Okay, to treat, I mean, you know, when you want to treat obesity, you want to advise on diet and lifestyle and that. So nowadays they're starting more and more targeting on the appetite suppressant. So to do that, you have to understand the appetite regulation, okay, in terms of energy balance. So there are a few substance that is involved in the regulation. Okay, from the brain, there are MSH and NPY, neuropeptide Y. Okay, this is from your brain, and there are peripheral and that is involved in the control of hunger. Okay, so namely leptin, insulin, your CCK, and your ghrelin. Okay, so I want to go here. Okay, I think this diagram is a lot better. So if you can see here in hypothalamus, that is the nuclei that receive signal from peripheral. Can you all see can see my pointer? Yeah, you can see my pointer. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is peripheral, this is central. Okay, so so there are signals that you can receive in peripheral. Okay, namely for example, leptin. Leptin is produced by the adipose tissue. Okay, it will actually signal amount of adipose tissue in the body. So if you have high adipose tissue, you will increase leptin in the body. So leptin will decrease in appetite. Okay, so the red one is decrease in appetite, green is increase in appetite. Okay, so leptin is one of those more of a long-term regulation of your appetite. Okay. Okay. CCK. Where is your CCK? Okay, here. CCK is released when the food enter the small intestine. Okay, and it signal the pancreas and produce enzyme for digestion, but it's also increase the CCK. Okay, so CCK will signal the center to decrease appetite as well. All right. So your insulin, okay, is released when there is glucose. Okay, so glucose, when there's intake of glucose, it will trigger your pancreas, okay, to produce insulin, so will decrease the appetite. Okay, in the stomach, there is ghrelin. Okay, ghrelin will be released when there is low in food intake. Okay, when you're fasting, or when there is a decrease in food intake, so your stomach will sort of sense the emptiness in the, especially on the fundus part of the stomach. So when there is decrease in food intake, the stomach will release ghrelin. So the ghrelin will instead increase will signal the hypothalamus, okay, to increase the appetite. Okay. So what else? Okay, so the peptide Y is also released following meal, okay, from the stomach as well, from the EJT as well. So it will decrease the appetite. Okay, so what happened in the nucleus? Okay, so this will signal the nucleus. Okay, nucleus in the brain. Okay, so this nucleus, the NPY nucleus, what is the, the NPY nucleus is actually the appetite stimulant, will stimulate appetite. So this signal, okay, the signal from insulin, okay, and your insulin and PYY will inhibit this. It will inhibit the appetite stimulants. Okay, so that means it will decrease. It will signal the brain to decrease in appetite. Okay, POMC. Okay, is the part of a nucleus, okay, which actually decrease in appetite. Okay, so this will be stimulated by the leptin. Okay, so leptin can lead to decrease in appetite, okay, by also stimulating the POMC. Okay, so generally you have to at least know which substance, okay, lead to increase or decrease in appetite, and where are the signals come from, where are the triggers come from. Okay, so you're going to have to read a bit about this. Okay, so So about obesity, I'm going to go lastly on the effect of obesity. So because obesity poses a major risk, it's not only obese, but we are worried obesity, it has become a burden in the health, in the national health burden everywhere globally, not only here in Malaysia, but in fact it's globally because of the risk of many chronic diseases, okay, as well as acute diseases. Okay, so the major risk for chronic diseases including type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, hypertension, stroke, and in fact are cancers. So you will learn about metabolic syndrome in year 2 when you learn cardiovascular. So when you talk about metabolic syndrome later, we will talk more about obesity. Okay, so again, this diagram shows overall the effect of obesity, especially now we are worried about childhood obesity. Okay, so not only we are worried about cardiovascular disease and diabetes, okay, there are also other effects such as psychosocial effect that comes together with obesity, especially in childhood, you know, depression, poor self-esteem, so the overall quality of life is low. So there are many effects of obesity. Mainly we are worried about cardiovascular, heart disease, okay, and the type and diabetes and overall cardiovascular mortality when talk about obesity. But bear in mind there are also other risks in terms of health, mentally and physically when you talk about obesity. Okay, so that is the extent of effect of obesity in a person in terms of health. Okay, so to continue obesity, of course, diet control is one of them. That is you want to target at a reduced calorie intake, because we're talking about we're talking about a positive energy balance there. Okay, so you have learned just now about your macronutrients, what are the energy dense and what are the nutrient dense food, and how is your distribution of food should look like. Okay, what are the requirements of the energy of the individual depending on the body build, depending on the gender, the size. Okay, so diet control, increase in physical activity, okay, to trying to increase the energy expenditure so that you will have a negative energy balance. So that is the main principle in controlling in a treatment of obesity. Okay, but of course other options will be to start on certain appetite control drugs, okay, which based on what we learned just now in the hunger control regulation. Okay, all right, so I think that's all. Sorry for stretching up your time. I just couldn't help it because there's a lot of things to cover. Is there any questions?
Doctor,
Yes.
so we're discussing for obesity, how to prevent obesity, but the opposite, when there is less when there's less increase of body mass, is there a proven for all way to increase body mass, or it depends from person to person, or and is the best option to see a dietitian, or you can also do some research like what's the best approach to increasing body mass, but
Well,
instead of like decreasing?
well, it depends. Okay, why do you want to increase your body mass? First of all, Is it for
If it's
you
like if
know,
it's less than what it's supposed to be, like, because you can tell like
because
it's
all right. So the main thing is you're concerned about the health. Okay, so you have to know. All right. When you talk about obesity and obesity, first there are a few things that you need to identify first. First, are you at the normal BMI? First of all, okay. So you have to measure. Are you at a normal BMI? So if you are at normal BMI, so you are actually at a proper at a proper at a proper scale of weight. Okay, at a proper scale of weight. Okay, if you want to go a bit further, you can actually measure your visceral fat. Okay, but usually it is parallel to your BMI. Okay, because you know why? BMI has been studied to be parallel with the risk for cardiovascular mortality, because it has been studied. You will learn later when you talk about clinical nutrition why BMI is screened, why BMI is something that in a public health they want to look for when you talk about diet, nutrition. So you want to look at about BMI, because BMI is correlate with the cardiovascular mortality. Okay, so that means if you're at the right BMI, okay, and at the right waist circumference, okay, you will learn later about waist circumference. So this waist circumference is the indication of your visceral fat. Okay, so good BMI, good waist circumference, low risk for cardiovascular. So that is probably enough for you to gather whether you need more mass or not. Okay, but some people want to build mass for, I mean, for a nice body, for example. Okay, so it's not enough to have a good BMI, but I want to build muscle here and there. So that one requires a different approach. Okay, so you need to work out, you need to focus on a specific part of the body. So you need to eat more protein. But again, is it healthy? Okay, so you have to again refer to your food pyramid. Is it healthy to take so much protein to build muscle? So it has to be the balance for everything. Okay, but if you are talking about you want to increase mass because of the emaciation, so that means you are at a negative nitrogen balance to start with. So there is an indication for you to increase your body mass. Okay, so you have decreased mass. Okay, so you have decreased body mass. So that means you are underweight. Your body mass is low. You have negative nitrogen balance. Okay, so there is an indication for you to increase the body mass. Of course, there are certain dietary advice that you need to get from the dietitian. So yes, so this is when you want to actually eat more, okay, to increase mass. So you eat more protein to increase mass. So it goes back to whether decrease in mass with decrease in energy or not, So it has to be individual. I mean, is that answer your questions? Because
yeah, it does,
you
because there are
want
some
to
people.
increase.
No, there are some people I know of. I mean, part of it. That sometimes they eat as much as they eat a lot, but their weight never increases. Like I know so many people, and
So
even
that,
myself a bit included.
yeah, so that goes, so whether your weight increase or not, it depends on the energy balance. We talk about the calorie. Remember, eating a lot is one thing. Okay, are they eating a lot? So it back on the how much your energy intake from the food that they eat. Okay, and how much is the energy expenditure from the three components we talked just now: basal metabolic, the thermic effect of food, as well as the physical activity. So the basic will always based on the balance between energy intake versus energy expenditure. Okay, so if you eat a lot, but you eat a lot of high energy, you eat a lot of energy dense food, of course your energy intake will be high. So that means you will need to increase your energy expenditure. Okay, so you have to increase your energy expenditure. So how would you increase the energy expenditure? Usually you will need to increase your physical activity. Okay, because you can't do much on your basal metabolic rate, right? But if you eat a lot of nutrient dense, if you eat the same amount but it is more of a nutrient dense, of course you can actually achieve balance with the energy expenditure. So that is the principle of everything, whether the outcome is increased in weight or not. Okay, so of course we talk about energy expenditure. There are also a lot of other factors that comes with it. Okay, for example, your thyroid level and all that. Okay. Okay, and you're welcome. Any other questions? Okay,
Doctor,
you, yes.
about the attendance,
Mm.
there's a slot for the question, for us to answer a question from you to verify the attendance. So what will be your question, Doctor?
Really? Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. It's okay.
How does how
Just
does
any
that work?
question.
Any
Just
How does that work?
any
any random
questions,
question.
doctor?
I was not informed on this.
It's okay, Doctor. You
It's
can require us to write like numbers or anything, just to verify us that we attend the class.
Oh, really? Okay. Any question not related to biochemistry?
It doesn't matter. It's either you want it to be related or not. But Dr. Fai usually she asks questions related to biochemistry lah.
Oh, I'm not ready
based
for
on what
this.
you taught that day.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Um, what are the two major forms of protein energy malnutrition? So you will write that in your attendance, is it?
Yes, Doctor. In the
Okay.
attendance form.
Okay, so that is my question. Okay, if there is no question, so before we go, there are a few clarification. You will have your mid-course assessment on Friday. Is that correct?
Yes, doctor.
But
Yes,
that doesn't
Friday.
include nutrition, right?
No, I think it's the last is the integration of metabolism and what with the OGTT
Yeah.
we did on Monday.
Okay. All right. So it's only on the metabolism. So this will not be included in your mid-course assessment. I just want to be clear about that. And another thing, for tomorrow, it will be SCTL. Okay. Frankly, it is very difficult to conduct SCTL online. Okay, because I cannot see you. But I want to try to actually do the best. I have emailed all of you the task. Did you all receive that? I actually emailed last night. The task that you all need to prepare for the group. Okay.
Yes, I think we did.
Did you all receive? Yeah. So it's only is only a very simple task. Okay. Just to get the discussion going. Okay. please work in group. Okay, so how are we going to do this? I am going to give lecture as usual, but when we come to the topic that is relevant to the task, okay, I will get you to present on that. Okay, so did you get it? Okay, because I actually selected only a few area of the discussion. Okay, so when it comes to that topic that is relevant, I will ask the respective group to present. Okay, how are you going to present? You can, because most of it will be just like a very brief answer to the question. Okay, if you want to use slides, if you want to use diagram, you can actually share during the lecture. Okay, especially the diagrams. Like I don't fancy lots of